Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's a beautiful Wednesday, and we get to talk about football. So excited about football. We're going to talk a little baseball in the Daily 3, but today is going to be a football show, of course. Minnesota Vikings training camp is underway, so we have to look at what's in the fridge. Who are we going to keep? Who are we going to throw away? And who are we going to just set aside and maybe use later? We're going to definitely do that in the second segment, but coming up, the Minnesota Vikings offensive line may or may not be done. I was on the Vikings podcast, and they alluded to this, and now there's more steam headed to this direction that the Minnesota Vikings know their offense is what's going to make this team go. Can they make this offensive line better, or are they good with what they have? We'll talk about that next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and I'm looking forward to today's show. This is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota, and I want everybody to know this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Just visit FanDuel.com/Locked On to make every moment more. And as we talked about yesterday with Gabe Henderson, Vikings Entertainment Network insider, you want to get on that Danielle Hunter sacks. 10 sacks over under? That's a simple bet to me. 10 and a half, 11 sacks should be easy. He should be able to do that in his sleep. And with this new Brian Flores defense, put your money on that 10 sacks on the over before it's too late, because it's going to jump to about 12 to 13 maybe as the season gets going and people see how explosive, how ridiculous Danielle Hunter really is. So make sure you jump on the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com, like I said, /Locked On, and you can get started. Well, as I bring my producer to the show, Sam Ekstrom, Sam, training camp is underway. And when training camp's underway, got to throw this out there. We'll talk about this a little bit later too, but Tristan Jackson, Minnesota Vikings wide receiver, went down with an apparent knee injury. We don't know exactly what yet, but it didn't look good. We saw him get carted off. I saw him walking to the doors. He couldn't put any weight on it. And so that sucks. He's a Detroit native, so I got a chance to meet him this past season. Really like the kid. Seems like a good kid. Was having a decent camp. Was actually putting his name in the hat for that wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 spot. Special teams is going to come into play, and then injury strikes. And that sucks for young receivers because it's tough when you haven't put a lot of stuff on your resume for other teams to even realize, like, well, if this guy gets cut or gets an injury settlement, is he worth picking up? But I think Tristan Jackson hopefully is not serious, but it does seem to be trending towards that direction of a serious injury because didn't look like anybody really pushed him. Just looked like his knee kind of buckled. And then, like I said, when I saw him get off the cart, he was putting no weight on it. So unfortunately, prayers out to Tristan Jackson in his recovery or whatever happens. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully nothing bad. We also saw Andrew Booth Jr. walk off the field. Don't know what an injury he has. And he's been the last 2 seasons in college, came out of college with an injury. Then his rookie year, season on an injury. Now another injury during training camp. So that's just bad luck. It's one of those things where you hope Andrew Booth was going to get to compete for that 2 spot because it felt like 1 was kind of solidified. But it just sucks to see a guy like that, another guy dealing with injuries multiple years. But again, he was walking on his own. He walked into the training room. So maybe his is just something soft tissue and something easy. But enough of the seriousness. I guess not enough of the seriousness, but we kind of said our condolences to the players that were injured yesterday in training camp. There's been a lot of injury going around, a lot of players not showing up, as you mentioned. But Sam, when you look at this training camp, a lot of experts, national experts, are picking the Minnesota Vikings to kind of be right in toe step with the Detroit Lions. Everybody's saying, Bucky Brooks said this on NFL Network, the Vikings can score 30 points. That's not a question. But can the defense stop a team from scoring 30 points? That's the other question. We know that was not the case with the Colts last year. They put up 33. Thankfully, the Vikings were able to come back. But when you look at this offensive line, and you know that Christian Darrisaw, you know Brian O'Neill, you probably know Garrett Bradbury. You have an idea, at least, of what you're going to get out of him. And then Ezra Cleveland. But that right guard spot, and Sam, you know this, it's been a question mark for the last couple of years where it's like, who's going to play guard? I remember the jokes on Twitter. Every time there was a draft pick or a signing, does he play guard? Well, if they sign this guy, he does play guard. But tell me, Sam, what's going on in the football world, the Minnesota Vikings, in this potential signing?
Dalton Risner is in the building. He has visited the Minnesota Vikings. They've had meetings. 4-year starter for the Denver Broncos, played almost every game over 4 years, 4,000 snaps for them at left guard. I feel like the Vikings would be looking for right guard help. I tend to think that Ed Ingram struggled a little more than Ezra Cleveland, so maybe they're trying to figure out if Dalton Risner can play right guard. Is he willing to be a backup at first and then maybe step into a starting role later in the season? Is he willing to take backup money? These are all the questions we don't know, but the Vikings are obviously exploring with him because the Vikings offensive line coach, Chris Cooper, he's the former Broncos offensive line coach. So he and Dalton have that connection. Former second-round pick. He's been very solid and consistent for 4 years in Denver. I wouldn't say elite, but he's been solid and probably would be an upgrade for the Vikings on that offensive line. So it's a very compelling move very late in the game. Could they get him up to speed in this offense in the next month? Yesterday, KOC was talking as if this thing was happening. So what do you make of it? Do you think they could stand to upgrade on that offensive line and make him a starter right away?
I think so. When I looked at Dalton Risner, I remember, and I have to go back to some tweets because I'm pretty sure I tweeted it. But I remember when the draft was happening before, and I was like, I wonder if the Vikings could get Dalton Risner. I don't think it was going to happen, but I remember he was one of the names that I liked. Also like Quentin Nelson way back when. I knew there was no chance to get him because as high as he was going to go. But when you look at contracts, and here's where I go with the money. The Minnesota Vikings already are in a money situation, knowing they're trying to free up money for next year, for Justin Jefferson, for possibly Danielle Hunter, maybe a re-signing of Kirk Cousins for 2 more years. The average guard contract right now for big-time guards, Chris Lindstrom, Quentin Nelson, top of the food chain, $20 million average salary. But then you go down to Brandon Smith, Edrin Jenkins, Brandon Sheriff. They're in the 15 to 17 million. Question is, you got Frank Ragnow, 13.5. He's more of a center than a guard, but they put him in this. You got Ryan Jensen, center, 13 million. The question is, where does Dalton Risner fall in this grouping? When you start to look at these names of guards and just names we know, the thing about offensive guard, if you don't really know them, they're probably doing a good job because they're not getting killed. Now, if you know them, they're either 1, really good or 2, really bad. The middle of the road guards, we don't know. If they're really, really bad, people make fun of them all the time on social media. They're really, really good, like a guy like Quentin Nelson. We're going to see highlights and how hard he works and how much he does. Quentin Risner is going to be, like you said, does he want to take backup money? Do the Vikings want to offer him starter money? He's going to move in. The fact that he has a coach on the staff, I think that puts him in the running to say, I can probably get up to speed faster or just as fast as Ed Ingram did, if not faster, because I'm a veteran. Because at that point, it's all about terminology. How do I help you understand what you did with the Broncos to what we're doing with the Vikings? So if we called scoop, which is basically you're telling the tackle on the guard to kind of take a scoop step or a wide step to scoop to get the guy to the strong side. Whatever, everybody has different ways of how they do it. If I call sift, which just means I'm sifting through and it's almost like a zone type of block. They might use different terms with the Minnesota Vikings, but he having a coach can say, hey, turbo is the same thing as sift. Tractor is the same thing as scoop. That's the thing about these terminologies with teams. Everybody doesn't always use the same terminology. One, because you don't want to say it, and then the other team's like, oh, man, we know exactly what y'all are about to do. We're on a twist. This is screw them up because we know. So when you think about terms and all that stuff, that's the first key of can he get in started. 2, did Ed Ingram do enough to solidify himself as the starting guard? No, he didn't. He struggled last season. We had Randall McDaniel on, and he talked about how hard it is for offensive guards and how it's later in their career. Again, the Frank Ragnows, the Brandon Smiths, the Quentin Nelsons, You don't get guys like that all the time, and that's why you have to either draft them high or get lucky. It's a tough position with all the inside blitzes and all the protections you got to know, and all the help. You got to help the guard and you got to help the tackle. There's a lot for guards. You got to pull. It's a lot. And so when you think about what Randall McDaniel said, he's just like, hey, like I think, because I remember we asked him specifically about Ed Ingram. Like, I think he can be good. He has the tools. He has he looks mean. He plays hard, but it's going to take him time. Here's the question. Kevin O'Connell might not feel like he wants to take that time this season because of Kirk Cousins. Like, he knows Kirk Cousins is on the timetable. If you have a quarterback on a timetable, you do whatever you need to do to make sure your offense is the best of the best. You don't put duct tape on a Ferrari. You go get you a new part that fits this Ferrari of an offense with Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, Alexander Madison. And I think that's where Kevin O'Connell is at. He's like, look, could I get away with it? Could I put a different part in here and maybe make this car work? Yeah. But is it going to go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds? Probably not. Dalton Risner might bring that to him, and that's the reason why they met with him. So I do think that he's a good fit. I think as a veteran, you give a solid presence. Again, left guard, right guard. I know we know Ezra Cleveland at one point was a tackle. So I feel like if there's a guy that can swing and go back and forth, I feel like it would be Ezra Cleveland that can go to the right. But honestly, you probably want Ezra Cleveland, who's a little bit more svelte, next to a Christian Darrisaw, and then you want a bigger guy like Dalton Risner next to a svelte tackle and Brian O'Neill. So it's all about hand placement, getting down, 3-point stands, all that stuff. Like, I know it changes. That's what some guys that are comfortable with right tackle stay right tackle. Guys that are comfortable with left stay left. But I feel like that might be one where Dalton Risner's like, yeah, I can play right. I can play right guard. Like, it's just switching the hands, switching the feet, same footwork. Like, yeah, I can do it. So again, I think it comes down to that. How much money does he want? How much money are they willing to give him? And then, like you said, is it come in and let's let Ed Ingram be the starter and you have to beat him out in preseason? Or is it, look, we're bringing you in, dude, to start. Like, you're going to be our starting guard. Please sign with us. This offense is primed and ready to go. We just need a little bit of help to bolster that middle. Because Garrett Bradbury at times got bull rushed, where Dalton Risner might be a guy that can help him out with that too. And also just be another veteran voice on that line when you have two young tackles. And theoretically, I guess you could say Garrett Bradbury is a little bit, older, but, you have some young guys overall other than Kirk Cousins on that line. So, yeah, I can see it working. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like the idea of bringing in someone at value to try to upgrade that right guard spot. Dalton Risner has never allowed 30 pressures in a season in his 4 years. Ed Ingram allowed 58 last year. So that would be like half the amount of pressures getting in Kirk Cousins' face. Yes, sign me up for that. I'm just baffled, Ron, why there wasn't more of a market for this guy. What don't we know? I've heard that maybe there's some personality stuff there, didn't get along great. He did get in a little scuffle with the backup quarterback in Denver once. Is there something going on that makes Dalton Risner unappealing to other teams? Because why is he's 28, he's not ancient, 4 good years as a starter. Why is he just sitting there? That's what I want to know. Why is Dalton Risner not on a team, and why is he not getting paid? Maybe he wants that Chris Lindstrom money, Ron. Maybe he wants Quentin Nelson money, and no one was willing to give it to him. And now he's stuck here looking for a team. I just can't figure that out.
If I'm an offensive lineman, one, it's a tough job. You're getting banged, you're getting hit, you're getting beat up, you're sweaty, it's hot. You're always having to wrestle and fight with people. Like, receivers, they gotta have it, not say easy, but easier during training camp. Quarterbacks, kickers, punters, country club. But for offensive linemen, it feels like it never stops being brutal. And so, do you want to go get brutalized and make $7 million with a team that's going to lose and it's going to be terrible? Or do you want to be with a contender and make $7 million? I think that's going to be the key. Like, where are your priorities? Are your priorities trying to win the Super Bowl, or your priorities are getting paid? And guys seriously have to make that decision sometimes. Even though 7 versus 20 is a big number, but 7 versus maybe 10, sometimes you have to make a decision. Like, $3 million is a ton of money, but when you're looking at, I have a potential payday with another team, do you go to a contender so that you look really good and you build that resume versus somebody at the bottom of it? Like, if you go to the Cardinals, Nobody's going to watch you. Nobody cares what you're doing. You're going to be the worst team in the league, the Texans. So, I think that's going to be the key to this Dalton Risner signing is where does he want to be? But it's time to move on to what's in the fridge. What's in the fridge? So it's basically like, kill one, keep one, steal one, whatever that game is. But people, it's what's in the fridge. It's I'm going to eat one or take one out for a meal. I'm going to keep one in the fridge for later. And then I'm going to throw one in the trash because I think it could expire and I'm not going to come back to it. So we're going to do that. And we know all you Minnesotans love to keep your leftovers in the fridge until it's too late and you throw them away and never eat them. It's a Midwest thing. We love to do that. But when we come back, we're definitely going to get into what's in the fridge, training camp edition. We also have a word from our sponsors.
We're brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Take your first swing at betting baseball at FanDuel. If you're a new customer, this is their great promotion. You get 10 times your initial bet back in bonus bets up to $200. So you can put 20 on the Twins tonight in St. Louis, although I hear the game might get rained out. And you can get 200 back whether you win or lose. Bet 10, get 100. Bet 5, get 50. It's easy money, free money at FanDuel. It's an app that is safe, secure, and very easy to use. You get paid instantly when you win. There's no better place to bet MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Here's the website, FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get those $200 in bonus bets, whether your team wins or loses on that initial bet. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball.
Well, it's time for what's in the fridge, and I wish FanDuel could do a what's in the fridge bet. Like, who is in the fridge and who you're going to bet on to eat, who you're going to bet on. Like, that would be a really good one, too. Like, who's going to get thrown away? Bet $10 on that. And people can bet on, like, 3 players. You have to, like, a 3-player parlay what's in the fridge with FanDuel. But we're going to do our own version. What's in the fridge? What are we going to take out for dinner? What are we going to leave in the fridge for later? And then what are we going to throw away? Take it away, Sam.
All right, we got 2 groups of 3 that we're going to play this with. So let's start with last year's rookies. Last year's injured defensive backs who are all trying to bounce back this year. You've got Lewis Cine. You've got Andrew Booth Jr., who unfortunately seems to be injured again. You've got a Caleb Evans, who might be locked in as your starting cornerback. So, Ron, what's in the fridge with Cine, Evans, and Booth?
Yeah, this one kind of wrote itself with the injury to Booth. I think before this would have been a little bit tougher because I did like Booth and the nickel. He was going with the 2s, I think. But now it kind of wrote itself. Booth with the injury, I'm definitely going to throw him in the trash. I just feel like, who knows what you're going to get out of him. I think with Lewis Cine's being the backup, but you don't know what you can get out of him. Like when you see him on the field, he's tall, he moves well, he's fast, he's confident. You could tell he's like been working out. Like this off season, you could tell he put because I'm pretty sure he had to do it a ton with his legs anyway. So it was just like a workout type of guy. He looks real fluid. He looks comfortable. I saw him put his foot in the ground, which is the one, the leg he broke, but put his foot in the ground and break on a ball. So even that, having the confidence to do it and know like, hey, my leg is fine. I'm going to put Lewis Cine in the fridge for later. Like I think he's a guy for later that can really be a good piece to this puzzle. And then I'm taking the Caleb Evans out for dinner. Like Caleb Evans looks really ready to go. We saw the conversation with the Vikings defense talking about long DBs and long arm DBs and why he likes them and so on and so forth. Caleb Evans fits. Like he has the ability to jam. He has the ability to run with you. He's fluid. He has really good hips. He doesn't ever look overwhelmed. He doesn't panic when he's beat. Like he plays catch up really well. In certain situations, like he doesn't just go to reach and grab and try to get a PI. He stays in phase, basically what they call it, and runs with the receiver, knowing he's still got to run some type of route and the ball's got to come out eventually. And there's only one spot it can go, and that's to his hands. So I'm gonna take Caleb Evans out, and I'm gonna have him for dinner. I don't know. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, I think you laid it out well. Couple ways to support that too would be Mekhi Blackmon was rotated in with the ones a little bit. Andrew Booth was not given that opportunity. So clearly they even before the injury, they liked Blackmon even a little more than Booth in that rotation. So it seems like Booth isn't quite in the team's favor right now, and now he might be hurt. And then at Caleb Evans, there's really been no competition. He's just the guy. He is your starter opposite Byron Murphy. It hasn't been a rotation situation. They went into camp trusting a Caleb Evans as your starter, and that hasn't changed at all. So I think he's definitely what's for dinner. And then for the reasons you laid out, Lewis Cine, yes, he's a backup right now, but I think there's still a lot of upside there. So we'll save him for a dinner later in the week, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, I got one more for you. Let's look at the wide receiver 5 battle, or I guess you could even call it the wide receiver 4 battle.
Yeah.
You got Brandon Powell. You've got the injured Jalen Nailor, who should be back soon, and you've got Jalen Reagor. So Jalen, and Brandon Powell. What's in the fridge with those guys?
Yeah, so when you look at this Vikings roster, and again, the receiver and core, you talk about who can play where. It looks like right now in training camp, Justin Jefferson is going to be your move guy. Like, he's going to be your Cooper Kupp. I think it's finally truly going to be Justin Jefferson's Cooper Kupp. I honestly feel like Kevin O'Connell might have been torn. This is why. When you come into a team and you tell people, my offense is going to look like the Rams, or people just assume and rumors get out or whatever, or intel is given out, we're going to look like the Rams. Well, there's Cooper Kupp. And not to make it racial, but Adam Thielen resembles Cooper Kupp more than Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson feels like Van Jefferson, your goal guy, your speed guy, the guy that's going to give you big-time plays, or your Odell Beckham to the Rams offense. Like, there's a lot of ways you can look at this. Because Cooper Kupp, in people's minds, often wasn't like a fast guy. Like, Justin Jefferson seems fast. Cooper Kupp wasn't always seen as fast. Like, he was always doubted. But also, too, when you look at two veterans, like, you have two veteran guys. And that's why I'm not even making it, like, racial, because people were trying to say that like that was the joke. Adam Thielen looks just like Cooper Kupp. But when you talk about veterans, you come into a team of one veteran and actually one young guy, and you tell the young guy you're going to be the star, and you tell the veteran, like, you're going to be the decoy. I think Kevin O'Connell was torn with how to really use Justin Jefferson and not, even though he was the focal point, like, still try to get Adam Thielen involved. You exit Adam Thielen, I think it's done. So I think Justin Jefferson becomes the true Cooper Kupp, the inside receiver, the slot guy, the move guy. You got KJ Osborne, and you got Jordan Addison, who people thought Jordan Addison might be the slot. He looks like he's going to be outside, taking the top off, getting a lot of single coverage because he's on the backside by himself with Justin Jefferson. Looks like Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne on the same side. So then when you start to plug in receivers that can fill those roles, because backups literally just do what the guy in front of them does, and then also maybe some 4 receiver packages, maybe a 5 wide. Who knows what we're going to see this year. When you look at the numbers, Brandon Powell, little guy, 5'8". But what does he do well that nobody else does? Run fast. He's a jitterbug. He can give you some of that Chiefs offensive stuff, the jet sweeps. The other guys you named, Jalen Reagor and Jalen Nailor, I don't feel like they give you that. Now, they do give you stuff, but I don't know if they give you that. So here's where I go with this. Unfortunately, I think Jalen Reagor's played himself off the Minnesota Vikings. Like, last year, Netflix shined a light onto some of the errors he made, which we saw it anyway, but it was blown up that Kirk Cousins even noticed and called it out. Like, why did he move against the Colts game? Why didn't he keep running the deep ball? Why didn't he do that? There's a lot of whys. And I always tell people this: tryouts, great. Some people try out well, some people practice well, but game tape is going to tell you exactly what you're going to get out of that player. And so for Jalen Reagor, unfortunately, like, I think if these guys weren't there, he'd be fine. But Brandon Powell, I feel like already has outplayed him in practice. You watch Brandon Powell, he flashes. Like, he jumps across the tape. He makes plays. He's fast. He's not tall, but he's fast. He's been a great outlet for Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins has found him numerous times. He has past history with Kevin O'Connell. So if I'm going to take something out for dinner, I'm taking Brandon Powell out right now. Like, Brandon Powell is going to be dinner right now. One, he's also going to be your punt returner, and that's why I say that X is Jalen Reagor. So I'm putting Jalen Reagor in the trash. I'm putting Brandon Powell for dinner, and then I'm going to put Jalen Nailor in the fridge for later, because I feel like he showed a lot towards the end of the season, during training camp right now, early on before his absence. He was doing well. He looked fast. People were, like, really impressed with where he was. I think they kind of had him as wide receiver 4 for the start of it. Like, Brandon Powell was 5, he was 4. Reagor was kind of 5 as well, like, with Powell, but now it seems like Powell's kind of, and basically it's 2 sets. It's 3 and 3, so it's 6. So in the top 3, you got KJ Osborne, Justin Jefferson, and
Addison.
And then with the 2s, you had Reagor, Powell, and Nailor. And so that's kind of how it was during, like, walkthroughs, during the early camp stuff, and that's why I go with that. That's where I'm kind of putting it. I don't think any of those, and of those three, too, I think this is going to be a primarily 3-receiver team. I think they're going to do a lot of 2 tight end stuff. I think Josh Oliver is going to eliminate some of the stuff these guys do. I think CJ Ham's going to eliminate some of the stuff wide receiver 4 and 5 get to do. And I think TJ Hawkins for sure. Like TJ Hawkins is wide receiver 4. Like I think he's going to want, if I'm going 4 wides, I'd rather have Hawkins in the slot than a Brandon Powell. And I think that's going to dictate as well. Like he's my punt returner, but he's my wide receiver 4. I might not even go into a game with 5 receivers if I have more special teams guys that I need at other positions. So that's where I kind of go with. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're seeing things pretty clearly, Ron, with the cornerbacks and now with the wide receivers. I also would take Powell out to dinner, and it's a shame that Naylor has been hurt because I think that he and Powell would be battling for wide receiver 4 right now.
Yeah,
if Naylor was healthy, because I think Powell is kind of moving ahead now that he's on the field and Naylor's not. But Naylor has looked so good up until his injury that I think he could maybe get back on the field and give Powell a run for his money. And I think that Powell, put in similar situations as Reagor, has looked so much better over the course of the spring and now the summer. It's got to be Brandon Powell. That might be a sneaky good acquisition for very little money that the Vikings made, kind of in the same vein as like Jawan Williams, someone we overlooked and now someone who's making an impact. Those are some good cheap signings by Kwesi. Good for him.
Yeah, you can't make the club in the tub, they always said. It's tough to make the club when you're in the training room sitting in the ice tub. And so that's been the history of the NFL. Guys have, I mean, look at Trey Lance. Trey Lance was the starter, and now they're talking about he doesn't look good anymore. Could be mental, could be just they're just saying that so that they can get rid of him and not have any like backlash from the fans, and like the fact that they wasted the number 2 pick and jumped over everybody to get him and all this other stuff. Trey Lance. That's the hometown, and maybe he gets cut. Maybe the Vikings pick up Trey Lance and he comes home to Minnesota and he becomes the starter for Minnesota because he looked good early on as a starter. Maybe Trey Lance to the Vikings could happen next year. Kirk Cousins exits. Trey Lance is out there as a free agent. Kevin O'Connell likes him from the Bay Area. He was out there in the West Coast before. Saw him. Maybe he fits. He's that second play guy. I'm not gonna say he's Patrick Mahomes, but he's that second play guy. Maybe Trey Lance comes home and is the savior for the Minnesota Vikings after Kirk Cousins is done.
Let's try it.
Hey, why not? He's going to be out there. But I want everybody to know SiriusXM Radio is a proud partner, the SiriusXM app with Locked On Sports Minnesota. You can get the Twins hometown broadcast just by downloading the SXM app. But please make sure you know the Twins are visiting the St. Louis Cardinals tonight at 6:45 p.m. They're visiting the St. Louis Cardinals at 6:45 p.m. They did win 3-2. So maybe the Twins are trending in that direction. They didn't make any trades. We know Astros got Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander's my Detroit guy. I really wish the Twins would have traded for him, but they don't know what to do with the money and how to get people like that. I really wish they would have got him, though. But Justin Verlander's going to the Astros. They're probably going to win another pennant or something. Who knows? But make sure you download the SXM app because you can get Locked On Sports Minnesota as well as the Twins hometown broadcast by just searching Twins. Well, it's time for the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. Take it away, Sam.
All right. I've got a Vikings, a Wolves, and a Twins question today. So let's go around the sports landscape, starting with Ivan Pace Jr. Yes, the rookie undrafted free agent is popping on defense. He's been with the 2s all of camp and occasionally even with the 1s when they do a kind of a scrambled rotation. Undersized Ron out of Cincinnati, 5'10". He is not traditional linebacker height. Do you think Ivan Pace Jr. can make an impact at his size in the NFL?
Yes. The reason I say is for the reason we talked about earlier this week with CJ Ham. CJ Ham mentioned there's not a lot of teams running lead ISO. There's not a lot of teams using a fullback and just as a battering ram anymore and clearing the lane for a running back. Running backs like Jim Irsay, and his quote was taken out of context. He said, "If I die and Jonathan Taylor's out the league, nobody's going to care. The league will go on." I still don't understand that. Why are you killing yourself and killing people's careers just to prove that running backs don't matter anymore? That was I think not Saquon, but I think Jonathan Taylor even said that was disrespectful. That's why he wants to get traded. And there's rumors he might get traded. Keep an eye on that. They said he might go to the Chiefs. But when you talk about Ivan Pace Jr., he doesn't have to deal with running backs like that. Like, we know the Packers are going to run the ball because of Jordan Love. We know the Lions do want to run the ball because of the running backs they have, but not a ton. We know the Bears have a small running back. They don't have a fullback, but the thing none of these teams have is like a fullback running through the lane at all times. Like the Packers, maybe, but every other team, like the Buccaneers, no. Cole Keefe is their tight end. He's going to back up into the backfield every once in a while, but he's not a lead blocker. So I think that type of linebacker now can work, but in the past it's worked too, though. It's all about the size. It's not the size of the dog. It's not. It's about the fight in that dog. What does he want to do? What does he want to go after? Ray Lewis was under 6 feet. Zach Thomas was under 6 feet. He was under 5'11", I think. I think Zach Thomas was 5'10". So again, I go back to it. I think, yes, he can be impactful in this league. I think he can help the Minnesota Vikings with speed. The way Brian Flores wants to play looks like they're going to be flying around the field. So Ivan Pace Jr. has turned some heads already, but, we'll see. I think he's with the twos. I think preseason is going to give us a real true light onto what he can be on the field.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive to see him out there ahead of a veteran like Troy Reeder. Seems like they really like Ivan Pace Jr. So that's been impressive. And then let's move to basketball. Anthony Edwards is changing his number. Yeah, this is the basketball news we talk about this time of year. From number 1 to number 5. Which he wore in college. So what do you think of the jersey number switch for Ant?
Well, Dalvin Cook did it. Dalvin Cook went from 33 to 4. As 4, he felt faster. He felt better. He felt comfortable. He talks about 4 is back as if it's a third person. So I see that. Like numbers are important. Like people try to act like it's not a big deal, but athletes and numbers, they go hand in hand. A lot of first round picks, sometimes first overall picks take that number 1 because they just think that's what they should do. But I think for Anthony Edwards, he's like, you know what? I want that 5. I want the 5. That's what I had at Georgia. That's when I felt the most comfortable. So if he gets even more comfortable in 5, I'm all for it. I know some of the fans probably aren't happy because they're like, man, I just ordered the brand new number 1 in the new uniform, and now you're going to go to 5. Well, yep, that's what Nike does. That's what the league does. Go buy out a number 5 now. You got to go upgrade and get a 5. But yeah, no, if it's all for comfort and mental health of him and feeling comfortable in his uniform, hey, it's his number. Why not do it?
Yeah, 1 is just such a clean look. I was just a little bummed about it, but I think I'll get over it.
Yeah, you're right. The one did look really smooth. One did look smooth. But I look at 5s of like I think Kevin Garnett wore 5, didn't he, with the Celtics? I think about Jalen Rose who wore 5. Like I think he could pull it up. Wasn't like it wasn't Steve. Was Steve Kerr or John Paxson? Was it Kerr that was 5 or Paxson for the Bulls? I'm guessing Paxson.
I don't think it was Kerr.
Because Kerr was like in the 20s. So I think it was Paxson. Paxson might have been 5. So there's been some 5s out there. I think that could work for Anthony Edwards.
All right. Twins yesterday. Trade deadline was approaching. What are they going to do? The answer? Nothing.
Absolutely.
Now, I've been saying this for a while. They're not that good. They're a 500 team. They don't deserve to do anything. I don't want them to give up a bunch of prospects and try to, get rental players. I don't want that. Well, they did what I said, but people are still upset, Ron. They wanted the Twins to bolster this lineup for the home stretch. What do you make of the Twins standing pat at the deadline?
Well, when you look at the Minnesota Twins, I've said this before, and everybody said this. Like, this is kind of like synonymous with Twins. They're cheap. Like, everybody's always said that. They have they say the poll ads, just don't spend money. And when you look at the AL Central, 55 and 53, 2 games ahead of the Guardians, they are tied. Actually, no, they're a half game behind the Yankees. And the Yankees are the worst in the AL East. So they're a half game behind the worst team in the AL East. And, well, the Athletics suck, so I can't say about the AL West. But then same with the Mariners, who are at the bottom, second to the bottom of the AL West. They're a half game ahead of them. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 teams that are better in the AL than the best team in the AL Central. 9 teams. If this were like, we're not going to go by Central, West, and East. We're just going to go by like NFC, like the NFC does for playoffs.
Right. Twins
wouldn't be in the playoffs. So that should tell you a little bit about, like, don't feel like because you're in the playoffs, you're in the play. It's almost like I forget, Glenn Macy used to always say this. Because you're on third don't think you hit a triple. Like he was telling the freshmen this, like, because freshmen, I think junior year, were walking into a locker room of a team that had just beat Penn State. We had beat Ohio State. We had beat Michigan State. And so we were known nationally after beating Penn State. And Glenn Mason was kind of telling the freshmen, like, look, you guys are walking into a great situation. You're on the team now, because when I got there, they were coming off a 5-6 or a 4-8 season. In my freshman, we were 5-6. So nobody cared about Minnesota. And Glenn Mason wanted the freshmen to know, just because you're here, you're top 25 preseason, you finished in the top 25 the year, because on my 1999 we finished, I think, 17th in the rankings. So he's saying, like, you're on third because we're a team, but you didn't hit a triple. And I think that's where the Twins are. Like, you might be on third right now in the AL Central, but you didn't hit a triple. Like, this was given to you. You were given the AL Central by the Tigers, the Guardians, the White Sox, and the Royals. Like, these teams don't want it. They are giving you this. And so don't be complacent and content with where you are when you're not better than 9 other teams in the AL. And, like, you have to play them in the American League. You have to play them in the playoffs. So why not go get a Justin Verlander? Now, I don't think Justin Verlander would have come. I don't know. But maybe. Like, why not go get maybe another bat? Why not find another arm? I mean, I just don't understand it. I don't get it. So we'll see. Maybe they'll have a first-round exit again in the playoffs, and then maybe they'll finally do it. But it's the definition of insanity. They're going to keep doing the same thing over and over, hoping for a better result. I don't know, Sam. What were your thoughts on that trade deadline?
Yeah, like I honestly, if they wanted to win a World Series this year or get slightly closer to being a World Series contender, they probably did need to do some stuff. I just don't think they can make up that gap. I think they're so far away offensively from having that kind of team that I would rather hold on to my prospects, because they emptied the pool last year. They tried to make some big splashy moves and they all backfired, right? And they kind of robbed themselves of a lot of talent in their minor league system. I think that this year you roll the dice. You say, let's just roll with what we have. It's probably not enough, but I don't know if it ever could be enough. This team is so flawed. I'd rather see them, spend some money in the offseason, and pessimistically, I think just take another go at it next year. But I don't think this is their year to go all in. That's just me.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe, I mean, I struggle because I just feel like, why not go after it? But yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe they're like, I don't understand it because there's no salary cap. I still never understand this with baseball. Like, why not just buy you a championship at least once? Like, just go get whatever the number is, $200 million of players. I think at one point they said the Yankees were $500 million. Like their salary, their salaries one year was like close to $500 million with all the guys they were paying. Like, who cares? That brought you a championship. That bought you marketing. That bought you fans in the stands. That bought you playoff ticket money. That bought you World Series money. That bought you merch for winning a World Series. Like, and then you still have your billions because you're an owner. Like, the team is still worth maybe $1 billion. Come on. Like, it's just do it once. Just do it once. I know a lot of people are cheap and they don't want to spend money. And I'm definitely not trying to tell somebody to spend their money. But hey, if you have the money and you can win a championship, go do it. Be like the Yankees. Why not do it? Don't talk about them and be mad about them. If you can't beat them, join them. Do what they do. Like, why not? Or do what the Astros do and get some devices to help your batters where you can buzz them and hit some trash cans in the outfield. But hey, there's your two ways. You can either spend money or cheat like the Astros. That's your two options. And I'm guessing you'd rather spend money than be a cheater. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. I want to thank everybody who watches on YouTube. We thank you. We're a proud partner with YouTube. Just, you need an email address to jump on there. You can subscribe by just having an email address and hit follow. We'll have all of our shows that pop up. Will pop up right on your device as long as you're logged into YouTube. And once you sign in once, it keeps you in there. Amazon Fire and Roku. We are on your TV device as well. Just search Locked On Sports Minnesota. And then, of course, wherever you get your podcast, please make sure you do it. And then SiriusXM, the app. You can get it right there anytime. Just search Locked On Sports Minnesota. Also, you can get your sports teams. SiriusXM is going to have all sports. Right now it's Twins, but, of course, they're going to have Timberwolves. They're going to have Vikings. So you're definitely going to make sure you get that for the fall because football's coming. It's close. We got football coming. The Hall of Fame game, Sam, is coming up.
Yep.
The Jets will be playing football very, very, I think tomorrow, very soon. I'm excited about it. That means football is back. Again, I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. Have a great day, Pete.